It's also slightly odd to be making a keynote address at an event which is about digital diplomacy, because the essence of all digital communication, social media, where we are now, is about having conversations. It's not about listening to someone talk for 15 minutes. So I hope I may help to kick off those conversations, but it's, to my mind, those conversations that are really valuable. So, slightly random stream of consciousness, perhaps, let's see how it goes. The first point, I think, for all of us, which everybody in this room knows, but is one that we cannot overemphasize to our foreign ministries, to others who look at this sphere, not on a daily, hourly, minute-by-minute basis, is to recognize the transformative nature of the internet. It's probably the most transformative technology since, and then I find myself reaching for a list of things including the internal combustion engine, the steam engine, Spin, Jenny, the plough. I don't know which one it is, but it's up there somewhere in that list. It's fundamentally and radically changed the way that we live our daily lives. It's therefore fundamentally and radically going to change key aspects of our society, which means it's going to change our politics. It is changing our politics. It's changing our diplomacy. Key task, the challenge for diplomacy, for foreign ministries, is to keep up. I'd love to say the challenge is to get ahead. If we can get ahead, we should. But in many ways, just keeping up is something that is so driven by incredibly powerful drivers of people's social life, preferences, very strong, powerful economic drivers. If we can keep up, we're doing very well. Occasionally, people will ask me and my colleagues, what do you think is going to happen? Where is the web going to go? What's going to be important in a couple of years? And I envy those of you who get the chance to have a final session discussing what things are going to be like in 2032. And if you conclude anything beyond, we have absolutely no idea, but it's going to be very different, I should be particularly impressed. The only people who have any sense of where key things on the web are going are people who are exceptionally clever, work for a certain limited number of large private sector companies, and are developing products. And they're not going to tell us until they release those products, and then we'll learn how to use them. So, government is adapting, certainly in the United Kingdom, but I think around the world. Key thing, less so, but not entirely, less so for foreign ministries and some departments, the whole digital by default agenda. The provision of public services across the web, because securely, efficiently, reliably. Because it saves time and money. It saves time and money for the citizen, and it saves time and money for government if we do it right. Foreign ministries have things they have to do in that area. Provision of consular information, consular services, perhaps aspects of passport and visa issuing, legalization of documents. Not for us, but a number of foreign ministries, a number of diplomatic services overseas arrange for their citizens abroad to vote in their elections at the embassy. How much of that can you do over the web? The registration process, the voting, all of that. That's a public service delivery challenge for foreign ministries. But the other big challenge for foreign ministries is how we engage, how we use the communication tools. We're in an increasingly networked and connected world with diffused centres of power. It never was really the big old east-west two blocks and everybody else sort of being affected by it, maybe at a very macro level. But the world is now far more networked, far more diffuse. The internet, web, social media powers a remarkable explosion of people-to-people contacts, a remarkable creation of non-geographically centred coalitions around issues, around politics, and around diplomacy. That is unprecedented for those of us who, like me, joined the Foreign Service 20 years ago. We have to deal with that, we have to get in there, we have to communicate, we have to engage, we have to use it as a key element of delivering our foreign policy. Now, what are foreign ministries for? It seems to me that foreign ministries, diplomatic services are essentially for two things. One thing is what I call thinking. That is the formulation of foreign policy, the provision of advice to ministers, to governments about the conduct of diplomacy, about what to achieve, whether about what to do with an event that has occurred, or what to do to take forward an issue that you wish to progress internationally. Second thing is what I might call doing. This is particularly what many of you here in embassies in London do. That's the primary focus, which is really about influencing people. It's about persuading people to agree with you. It's about building coalitions. It's about finding acceptable compromise around issues to achieve mutually beneficial ends. In both of that, and of course those spheres overlap, embassies will rightly have insight and views on how foreign policy should be conducted, and officials sitting in a central foreign ministry whose primary purpose is to formulate policy will also themselves conduct diplomacy, whether virtually or in person by getting on aeroplanes and meeting at opposite numbers. Both of those things benefit hugely from a greater use of all of the tools available to us and the tools available in the future. So one of the first big challenges for foreign ministries is monitoring, is understanding the conversations, is recognising what is going on. Saying to diplomats abroad, do you have to come to a face-to-face event like this to gain significant insight into the views of one or more of the participants? Well, in many ways, nothing replaces actually meeting someone and having a conversation. But so many of us, think tanks, diplomats, politicians, business leaders, celebrities, broadcast our thoughts, our insights, our views, our experiences to everybody, potentially, in a way that previously we'd only probably have shared with our colleagues or our friends or our family. That's a remarkable change. That's a remarkable mine of information, sense of what is going on. Simply listening, I think, is a key part of every policy, diplomat, political officer's role. If you're not doing that, you are missing a huge opportunity. The other part of that is engagement, where people are discussing issues around policy, whether it be specifically on an issue, say the arms trade treaty, which the government wishes to take forward, whether it be more general, whether it be an academic discussion, whether it be a LinkedIn group about the trade craft and nature of modern diplomacy. Those are conversations that diplomats will need to be in. It's vitally important we do that. And that's a task not just for people like myself and Alison, our Chief Digital Officer, who are employed full-time to communicate in whatever way as communicating people. It should be a task for all diplomats, whatever their line of work, whatever their job description. Now, I'll wind up in a minute. A few challenges for foreign ministries. I alluded to it earlier. I think one of the biggest challenges is uncertainty. In general, large organisations like certainty and do not like uncertainty. We are writing, or rewriting, or writing a new digital strategy. Now, it seems to me digital strategy is quite easy to do at the very top and at the bottom. I would summarise our digital strategy, however we actually end up writing it, as being to use digital means to achieve our foreign policy goals. At the bottom of the strategy, we can write lots of things about our guidance on using social media, our preferred ways of doing things, the implications of the British Civil Service Code for how we conduct ourselves online, how we will take forward IT strategies to deliver these things. That's fine. The bit in the middle, because large organisations always want strategies that cover 2 or 3 or 5 years, is very difficult to do. If I had written a digital strategy 3 years ago, I wouldn't have mentioned Google+, because, correct me if I'm wrong, it didn't exist. If you wrote a digital strategy 10 years ago, you wouldn't have had Twitter in it. So we have to get used to living with uncertainty, checking and assessing, being very clear about what our strategic goals are, but being flexible and responsive in the way in which we achieve them. There's always a communications, IT, infrastructure, security, proprietary challenge for government servants, for foreign ministries, for people dealing with national security. That's always going to be an issue, but that shouldn't be a break. We have a sort of risk in many bureaucracies of a degree of inertia. We need to turn the question around in our organisations, not from should I be on the web, but is there any reason I shouldn't be on the web? That's the cultural change we've got to get. Now, I'm going to stop here because I think I've just about filled my allotted time. I hope some of those remarks may kick off or inform or enliven some of the discussion you have. I'm going to have to leave fairly soon, but I'm going to stay for a little bit of the next session. And I say again, thank you very much for the invitation. It's very nice to be here.